Welcome to Behind the Model, a show diving into the virtual world and exploring its stories, with the VTubers who lead the way. Medfluencing isn't a term you hear much in the VTubing world, but in Saiken's reality, it's everywhere. Having gone through med school and currently in his residency, the grind culture and high expectations are everywhere on social media. He's not one for it though, and through his VTubing has found an expressive outlet to let off the high-stress steam, and also give fans a little look into what the medical world is really like. Saiken, welcome to Behind the Model.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Hiroi Saiken. I am an internal medicine doctor in real life and an overqualified VTuber online.
Overqualified in what department? Is it the degrees or is it the length of study?
Yeah. the amount of schooling that I went through in order to work 6 days a week.
and yes. Just yes, and then do that on repeat until the end of time.
Yeah.
And then you decided, you know what? I'm going to come home and stream for a little bit from now on, every now and again.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit as an outlet for you and wind it back to not just when you started VTubing per se, but when you started med school and the expectations there. And the kinds of ways that you had to deal with that through, I guess, gaming.
Yeah. So I am 28 in real life years right now. And when I was in college, I mean, Twitch was it was getting pretty big, you know, not just for like super established, like League of Legends streamers, but just chatting was like becoming its own category at this point. And for me, streaming was something that I could do to keep in contact with my friends from after university, and I went on to med school in a different state, and I would be able to basically still play my games with my friends, be able to show off how average I was at League of Legends, and continue to play like these new releases for like an audience. So I began streaming in around 2018. So it's been about 5-6 years for me at this point. And yeah, I started off as like a normal webcam kind of streamer. 3 concurrent viewers for like 4 years. But I made affiliate. I had like emotes, and I did all the things that like a normal small kind of streamer does. I was in medical school during this time, so I was kind of only streaming like once or twice, like every other week or something. And it was never my intention to kind of go full timing with streaming or anything, but it was just something like a creative outlet that I could still enjoy, having fun playing video games, keeping in contact with my friends over the internet, and all these other things. So throughout med school, I kind of kept up that streamer lifestyle, that very bare bones streamer lifestyle. But I would say around the time of the pandemic was my 3rd year of med school, and that's when I was doing my rotations. So I was actually getting up at like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And driving over to like these hospitals that I had like 0 rights at. So I had to get there extra early to go park in their like auxiliary parking lots on like the other side of town, and then take like an employee shuttle bus at like 4:30 in the morning too. But I was getting up at like very demon hours, and I was getting ready at very demon hours. But around that time, I started getting into HoloLive like a lot of people were. And I really got into the Japanese VTubers, namely Hachima, Pekora, Korone, because those were the only ones that I could really watch when I was waking up at like 3:30 in the morning and going to bed at like 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So yeah, like everybody else, I kind of fell into that HoloLive rabbit hole. And I guess my interest in VTubing myself also kind of got piqued there. And then I guess my actual VTuber origin story did happen in my 3rd year of medical school later in the spring, which ironically was during my internal medicine rotation, but which is what I practice now. But one of the residents that I was working with at that time actually found my Twitch channel through my Instagram or something, and he just got like super judgmental about it, like like, oh, so like you play video games and people just watch you, like they don't even play with you, like is this fun? And people sub to you, like they support you financially, like why do you do this? And, like, it just got me like really not uncomfortable, but I will say I just felt very exposed in that moment,
Yeah.
right? That somebody, later down the road who I would be their doctor and I would be their patient, or they would be my patient, and they could just, Google up my name and get attached to my Twitch channel and, watch me like doing all these things. And I was just
Yeah.
like, maybe that is kind of weird, right?
It would also be a professional risk, right?
I mean, yeah, it's not like I say super out of pocket stuff or like super, it's not like I peddle like false medicine or whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was just a little weird that, if I continued streaming in the way I did, that somebody just down the road, either a not even a patient, but like, my attending or like an administrator could basically find out who I am based off of my Twitch channel or based off of my name and find my Twitch channel and see all these things that I do and all the content that I make. And, I wasn't huge or anything. Like I was like 400 followers, right?
Yeah.
But it just made me feel a little exposed that way. So eventually, a couple months later, down the road, I decided that VTubing would actually be a really cool outlet for me to pursue. Being able to kind of put on this anonymity while still being able to, kind of show off, the lifestyle, the grind or lack thereof in my case, of being a doctor and a streamer.
Yeah.
And I guess I lucked out. I found this model on Nizima by Nazuzu, and this model was like 3,000 yen. So
Yep.
it's just one credit card purchase away. And that's how it all started. I guess I did my pre-debut stuff in like March 2022-ish, and then I graduated med school that May, moved down to start residency, and then I started VTubing as like a fully debuted VTuber June 2022.
So it's been
about
a year now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my 1 year anniversary is in like 2 days actually, but
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm on night shift right now, so I don't think I really can prepare anything.
It's also like completely lost sense of time right now. 2 days, how many sleeps? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't envy that grind set, but you got the degrees for it and you've put in the hard work for it, and so this is kind of the fruits of the labor now. You're getting there. I want to wind it back a little bit because there was so much to talk about through there. The first one is actually going to be a little bit silly because as a fellow League of Legends fan, I need to ask a couple of questions. Did you play much rank? Do you have a peak rank?
Yeah, so I, ironically, in high school and college, I was like hard stuck gold 4, I guess gold 5 back then, but like hard stuck bottom tier gold.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden I get into medical school and I peak plat 2. And then since then I've been plat every season.
It's part of the brain expanding. Like it's getting all the new concepts in, and you just throw in a couple of mechanics as well.
You put on the white coat, and suddenly like it's the brain expanding me. You can see 12 steps ahead into the future.
Yeah. And what role did you play? What are your main champions?
I've always been a support main, enchanter main specifically. So
man after my heart.
Seraphine, Lulu.
Yep.
Yeah, my friends love playing with me. They're like, Saiken, we need you.
Yep.
I need you to press E on me. I need to feel something.
I like just holding, because as a fellow support main, I do like holding the power over people to be like, I could heal you. Like, I could support you. But
yeah, because like all these solo queue supports just play like Leona, Nautilus, Thresh, like super all in. But a lot of people forget like how good it feels to play with like an enchanter and just buffed autos, shields, move speed, all these like crazy attack speed steroids and all that stuff.
I also just can't believe that the person going through med school and now residency is also playing the people who heal people in video games.
It is only League of Legends though. I do play in Final Fantasy 14. I despise playing healer, so I play tank in that game.
Sucker for punishment then.
Yeah, or mostly because I don't trust other people, so I play warrior, which has like 12 skills that can heal itself. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously with the whole med school, very highly intellectual kind of field, it doesn't leave a lot of room for creative expression. that something like streaming and VTubing can afford you. How important was that outlet for you throughout your study and now your residency, when you have to deal with very serious things during the day?
Yeah, I mean, it is a very high stress environment. Obviously, nobody goes into med school thinking it's going to be an easy time, and there are always consequences to the things you learn, the consequences of your actions. Like, you're not just going into an office job and like typing up spreadsheets and making presentations. Like, you really are, at my stage of training, like making these life or death decisions, and finding ways to justify it, or finding alternative ways. If somebody has an allergy to a antibiotic, but you really do need to give that antibiotic, there are no other options. Like, what do you do? But yeah, I mean, I really do think that I found a really healthy balance between streaming, content creation, being dumb on Twitter, and kind of being able to separate that life from the person that I am at the hospital, but always having that as like a fallback. I feel like it keeps me grounded in the sense that I'm always able to have like one foot in either door on both worlds. If there VTuber Twitter drama is always really fun to read, and for the umpteenth time when somebody's like, "Oh my God, guys, my creepy viewer is coming back like with an alternate account, please be warned, everyone," and I'm just like, all right, well, I'm gonna go I'm gonna go to the emergency room, stick a chest tube in somebody's like chest, and let them breathe for the first time in like 2 days. Yeah,
It keeps things in perspective.
yeah, it does keep things in perspective. And again, even on the other side, it's so easy to get lost in medicine, and just especially in residency, when you're at the bottom of the totem pole and you are expected to put in these 80, 90, 100-hour work weeks. Being able to come home every day. Unfortunately, I don't live with my partner right now, but being able to come home and just have something that I can do, even living like in a bachelor kind of lifestyle, I still have like people to talk to, something that I can keep up with, and still have something waiting at home for me.
Yeah. And you mentioned it a little bit there, but how important is that balance to keep for you to just stay sane, basically?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think everybody has something for them that works out. If you really are the type of person that needs to come home and meditate and journal and, take 3 hours to reflect on your experiences to be like a better surgeon or whatever, like, yeah, maybe good for you. But for me, growing up, I've always been a guy to play video games, to spend way too much time on the internet. And I think I just lucked out finding a happy way to express that, even growing up, now that I'm twice my age than when I first started doing those things. I can still maintain like a high-powered doctor life and a high-powered like VTuber life at the same time too.
Yeah. I want to touch a little bit on medfluencing, because before I spoke to you, this was a world that I knew it existed, but it was never content that I ever crossed over with, and I never even saw on any of my timelines. Can you do a little explanation on the term for the uninitiated?
Yeah, so I mean, when people think about, or when I say the word medfluencing, I really think this began like maybe 6 or 7 years ago, to the extent that it is now. With people like Dr. Mike or people like Dr. Glaucomflecken. These are American doctors who really took to platforms like Instagram or TikTok, not to advertise their own businesses or their own practices, but just to kind of show off like what it's like, daily life, being a doctor, whatever. Dr. Mike is this really attractive family medicine guy who like posts these videos like, "Hey, get ready with me. Let's go save some lives. I'm on my commute grabbing Starbucks, blah, blah, blah."
Yep.
And on the other hand, Dr. Glaucomflecken is this super cynical ophthalmologist who makes these amazing TikToks that just like poke fun at the student experience and realizing that all of this bullshit that we go through should not be normal.
Okay.
But,
yep.
So yeah, I mean, there's all different kinds of brands to medfluencing, but in recent years, with TikTok and Instagram getting bigger and bigger, I did start to notice that there is kind of a trend of just like these people that just want to show off how hard they have their nose to the grindstone, like hey, like, get ready with me, like a day in the life of a orthopedic surgery resident, or get ready with me, day in the life of a third year med student. I wake up at 3 a.m. I go for a 10-mile run. I eat my low carb breakfast and start meal prepping for the rest of the week. Go to the hospital, study 16 hours for my exam, and then I go to sleep. Like, I don't know. It does, like, I understand that it may not be disingenuous for them, but I feel like it is disingenuous in that if you're like a young college student, a pre-medical student, somebody who wants to become a doctor, or just in healthcare in general, I feel like you would get discouraged by seeing these types of videos, like saying like, oh my God, I really do need to put in this much amount of work in order to achieve like something that I've wanted to do since I was a kid. And I would feel terrible. Like, I didn't watch any medfluencing videos in college or high school when I was thinking about becoming a doctor.
Yep.
But now I feel like some of that stuff would probably be unavoidable if you were 18 or 19 and thinking about going to medical school and being inundated with all of these videos about like, oh yeah, go to the gym 3 hours, do your flashcards while you're squatting, like make sure you know everything all the time, always.
Yep.
You know, when somebody asks if there's a doctor on the plane, like you gotta get out there as a first year medical student, and you gotta know all the anatomy and everything. And I get it. Like, I mean, if you want to show off how much you know, how hard you work, that's great. But again, yeah, for like those young adults in the room that are consuming more and more of this content, I feel like it does get a little stale that you're only being pushed one message from one side of the argument. And for me, I mean, I was a pretty average medical student through and through. You know, I didn't like succeed anywhere specifically, but you know, I didn't fail out. I graduated medical school, I got my MD, I matched into residency. That is the majority of doctors in this country, and a lot of doctors really just do put in their 40-50 hours a week, either in the clinic, the hospital, the operating room, whatever, and they don't take anything home with them. They go back and they live their lives and pursue their interests outside of medicine. So I guess part of my VTuber brand was kind of wanting to do that too, and you know, kind of showing off, you know, what I do, i.e. video games and tweet incessantly. But like as a VTuber, you know, trying to be able to get across that other brand of demedfluencing and kind of normalizing that you can be a normal guy and still work in this field and put in all these hours at the hospital and study hard, but it doesn't need to be your entire lifestyle where you're running at 110% efficiency every single day.
How different would your journey
like
of
something?
Yeah, sorry. How different would your journey have been if you had been exposed to this kind of content when you were going through med school? Because I guess it is like a more recent phenomenon with like TikTok and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on who the algorithm shows you, right? So people that I talked about, like Dr. Glaucom Flecken, Dr. Schmidt, who's a gastroenterology fellow, these people I think make really good, you know, realistic, funny, you know, videos, right? Where they kind of poke fun at administration, talk about how bullshit like insurance companies are, but they really do have like good messages in their videos. But you know, some other content creators that, you know, I don't want to name any names, but I would say the majority of other doctor content creators would be like, hey, yeah, 50 hours of studying a day and make sure crush it, like low carb lifestyle or whatever. And yeah, I mean, if I was 18 and 19 thinking about going to medical school after university, I would be terrified of kind of pursuing that, because if that was all Instagram or TikTok was showing me of videos of doctors needing to be these high-powered individuals every day from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m., like, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have pursued it. I mean, yeah.
Do you then feel like the content you do, even like no matter whether your reach is big or small, fills a much needed niche in the community?
Yeah, like I'm not a huge guy by any means. I think I have I just passed like 700 on Twitch and like 1500 on Twitter or something. Like, of course there are other VTubers bigger than me, other VTubers in healthcare especially bigger than me, but I think as one of the few VTubers plus doctors IRL, it is like within my power to kind of get this message across, right?
Yep.
I think a lot of other people would probably want me to be like, oh yeah, like show me how you study, or like what are your best like study hacks or whatever. But I mean, you don't need to study hack anything. Just do work. Like, just because, yes, you're going to have to put in a lot more volume or a lot more effort if you want to pursue a career like being a doctor, but you don't have to change the entire way you live your life or how you've been doing things for the past like 15 years of schooling just because you're in this pre-med bubble. Like, there's no like brain rewrite that needs to go on in order to achieve something that, if this has been your dream and medicine is something you're seriously passionate about, I mean, you'll make it, right? You don't need to do all these extra things or watch these people that kind of force a certain lifestyle down your throat. Like, you can just be you, kind of like how I was being me, and I still made my dreams come true.
And you can just study your flashcards when you're in queue for league or something instead of.
Oh God, yeah. I wrote a little piece about it that it's currently my pinned tweet, which is basically everything that I just said the past like 5 minutes. But yeah, I think one of the things that I was telling people was that while I was doing my MSQ roulette, which is like a certain type of leveling in Final Fantasy 14, where you do like a story dungeon and you have to like sit through all the cutscenes and watch all the cutscenes every single time. I would do my flashcards like during those cutscenes, exactly like for my board exam, like the week leading up to my first board exam, USMLE Step 1. Like I was still like grinding everything while playing video games. So
yeah, I mean, you got to do what makes you happy at the end of the day. Like, if it's a part of the routine, and sure,
No,
you could stretch yourself out and completely bumble it, or you could just, keep the status quo that has served you well and do well.
Yeah, I think this has always been my status quo. Like as a teenager, as a young adult, I guess now cresting adulthood, video games have always been a really important part of my life. So finding a way to make it all work together has been kind of my goal. And I think as a VTuber doctor, I've definitely found a way to make it work. So there's nothing about my life that I think that I would change right now. There's nothing about, I guess, my livelihood, my lifestyle, the way I've integrated, degenerate gameplay 24/7 and responsible hospital guy 24/7. I've been able to keep both those sides of me and be true to who I am. And that's something that I think was important about showing off.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about your position in being those two people at the same time, because I would hazard a guess that your chat would include some sort, and the things that you see online would include some sort of misconceptions about residency or the medical field overall and your real world job. How do you go about navigating that while maintaining things like privacy and personal considerations?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this has happened before, but like people have sent me like their nasty like infections in like my DMs.
Oh no.
And whatever, and they're like, "Oh, can you diagnose this? Like, can you tell me, am I gonna be okay?" And it's like, hey man, like I don't do consults over the internet. Like if you're worried, like go talk to your doctor, right? Like I'm not here to formally diagnose or treat people. Like if you're my friend and you have a headache and you want to take something or you want to know how much is safe, fine, right? But if you've been dealing with like fibromyalgia or like a lifelong diagnosis, like I'm not a VTuber here to like uproot your entire trust in the healthcare system and be like, yeah, I learned about this when I was in. No, just like
this is the evolutionary step of telehealth, though. Is kind of what
VTubing consult service.
Yeah, that's around the corner.
Yeah, but I mean, no, some I guess irresponsible physicians do that though, right? Use their social media platform as a way to, oh yeah, you have a doctor on call 24/7. But at least in our circle of the VTubers that are also doctors in real life, I'm glad that we all kind of have the same position on this, that we're not here to provide healthcare services to people. We're just here to be ourselves online.
Is that a
So,
tight knit community? Like for you guys, like do you guys have a little bit of interaction between each other, the various Dr. VTubers out there?
um, I wouldn't say it's like a completely. It's not like a tight knit community, but
Mm,
we are aware of each other's existences.
mm,
Um, there is like a medical VTuber like VTuber medical worker Discord out
mm,
there, started by Night Owl Athena, who's a pediatric nurse in real life and a nurse VTuber.
mm.
And we just kind of realized that there are maybe 5 or 6 of us that are doctors in real life and doctor themed online.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I'd like to consider that I'm one of the bigger ones, but again, I mean, 1,500 followers ain't too much to brag about.
Yeah.
But
But you know.
it makes me happy to know that there are other people like me out there. Some of them like are my senpais in VTubing and like my senpais in like doctoring also, which is really interesting.
Yeah. That would make
Yeah.
for quite an interesting dynamic, actually.
And I mean, sometimes we do like there are other people, the ones that are still in medical school are streaming their study streams or whatever, and we're in the chat kind of poking like, oh yeah, that works, but wouldn't you want to get an MRI first, and like doing questions online on
Yeah.
stream together, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Or one of them will just be playing a game and then asking me, like, hey, let's say that your CT scanner was down and somebody came in with symptoms of a stroke, left-sided facial paralysis, right-sided lower limb paralysis, impaired sensation. I'm just like, I just want to watch the stream. Why am I being why am I being told to localize a lesion?
I had to deal with this for 12 hours today. I just wanted to come and watch some gameplay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it is a heavy burden you have on your shoulders at sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, but it's just nice to know that other people are going through kind of like the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not unique in that I'm a Dr. VTuber. So I mean, I think it is, now that I have like people ahead of me in training and people behind me in training as well. So people that are like more in years in their residencies or their fellowships, and then people that are still in medical school, about to graduate medical school, a couple of them, and being able to kind of be a mentor as well, which is again something that I wanted to provide with my brand. You know, not just to medical school students, but again, people thinking about wanting to be a doctor in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And kind of healthily demedfluencing this space, just as a VTuber.
Yeah. Did you ever expect that this would be your path from just kicking back in a college dorm in 2018, streaming games to your friends to keep in touch, to actually I can do something with this brand and bring an informative style of content that ties in your real world work and passions and, you know, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely not. But I mean, it is the way things ended up, and I guess I would feel really proud of myself, you know, thinking back to like 6 years ago. Just yeah, I could have put my nose to the grindstone and lost everything that would like make me, right? You know, playing video games, hanging out with my friends, being chronically online. And yeah, I could have, you know, studied twice as hard, twice as much, gotten more awards, had better grades. But, you know, at the end of the day, I still made my dreams happen, right? Like, being a doctor is something that I've wanted to be for, you know, almost a decade and a half now. And I've still been able to accomplish that while keeping that, you know, part of me true to myself.
There was...
So, yeah.
Yeah. There was an adage that you told me when we spoke for the first time where... That I found quite poignant, and I want to end the interview on it, is like, you know, what do you call a doctor who's at the bottom of their class? Like, you know, they're still a doctor.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
Like, you don't need to basically destroy everything about you just so you can get higher grades. If at the end of the day, I don't think most people know or care if your doctor was the top 1% of their medical school class 40 years ago, right?
yeah,
But
they
you know,
care if
maybe-
they're going to make
maybe-
you better. That's what they care
Yeah.
about.
And if you're able to do that, and if you're able to, you know, do your job, it shouldn't really matter what you do outside of work, right? So VTubing, streaming, otherwise, whatever hobbies you have, I feel like you should be able and be free to pursue those things without having anything like a higher moral obligation to society kind of riding you down, which I do feel like is what current, medfluencers and some content creators would have you believe.
Well, Saiken, this has been one hell of an informative chat for someone who has never touched the medical field whatsoever and is petrified of hospitals. So thank you, thank you so much for your time on Behind the Model, and I hope your journey to continue demedfluencing continues swimmingly. Hiroi Saiken is the latest guest on my new series Behind the Model, diving into the stars who make VTubing the creative medium we love. If you're interested in more of Saiken's story, you can read the accompanying article linked in the description. You can also find all of Saiken's social media channels below. If you liked this episode, I really appreciate you liking and subscribing down there while you're in the description. If you have any feedback, please leave them in the comments or hit me up on Twitter. Until next time, thank you.